There were 4 stories that touched my heart this week. And weaving through those 4 stories was the theme of loyalty. Listen. I saw that there was a story in an ancient Hindu text. I don't know how to read Sanskrit. I just saw it referenced, and so I looked it up. And it was a story about a good king. And this good king, along his journeys, had picked up a stray dog. And now in the journey of the good king, the time had come to die. And so the good king and the dog come to the gates of heaven. And the high Hindu god, Inda, was prepared to let the good king into heaven. Except the god said, "You can't bring the dog." At that moment, the good king turned around and left with his dog. And there's something about someone loving their animal companion even more than heaven itself that touches my heart. There's a goodness within us, and you see it displayed often in how we love our animal companions. I hear it all the time here at this church. And when one of our friends have died, if you've lost a dog or cat, all the time people come here to church so that they can share that, and they'll ask the pastors for a prayer. And there's something very beautiful about that simple, loyal love. I know you've heard that dogs are so loyal to their masters, but I tell you, I see how loyal you are to your animal companions. It's beautiful. There's a goodness. Quite often people will ask me, "Will my dog or cat go to heaven?" And I say without any hesitation, yes. Because if they're not allowed in heaven, it's not heaven, it's purgatory. Of course. And then I came across another story that touched my heart about a very famous dog in Japan named Hachito. This dog became beloved across the entire nation. Hachito's owner would get on the train every day and go to work, and then Hachito would go out to the train yard and wait for his owner to return every day. Well, one day his master went to work and he died of a heart attack at work, and so he never came back on the train. And every day for 9 years, Hachito went out to the train to wait for him. Every day for 9 years. And there's another famous dog, Greyfriars Bobby, from Edinburgh, Scotland in the previous century. And this dog is so famous, they built a statue in Edinburgh. You can see it. Greyfriars Bobby, well, his master died, and they had Greyfriars Bobby at the graveside for the funeral. And then that dog never left the gravesite for 14 years. People in Edinburgh had to bring out food to the cemetery. That dog stayed there for 14 years. That kind of loyalty. And then the fourth story, it's about a family. There's a husband and a wife and 2 sons, and a famine comes across their land, and if there's no resources and you've got to survive as a family, so they decide to migrate, and they migrate to another country because they're trying to survive. And there's something so heroic and courageous I don't know if I could do it, to marshal all that you can and just get somewhere else. And they migrate to this foreign country, and at least there's food there. And they're making their way. And then after a while, their two sons marry two citizens in that country. And so assimilation is taking place. This is the perfect vision of whatever assimilation is. It's driven by love, because all good things are driven by love, and peoples come together through love, and now the sons are married there. And over time, though, sad happenstance, both those sons died. So did their father. So now it's the mother who's a foreigner with the two daughter-in-laws who are citizens of that country. And so the mother-in-law comes to them and says, I've got to go back to my home country. You might not realize how often people have to go back and forth across borders in their lives, and they're doing what they can, and she says, I've got to go back. You two stay here. This is your country. And one of the daughters-in-law says, thank you, and off she walks. But one daughter-in-law stays standing right there and says the words that have echoed through history now. She says to her mother-in-law, whither thou goest, I will go. Entreat me not to leave thee. Your people will become my people. Your God will be my God. And that's Ruth. And without that act of loyalty, it's Ruth that goes back to Judah with her mother. Without that act of loyalty, the whole story doesn't happen. She becomes the great-grandmother of King David. Without that loving loyalty, the whole Bible doesn't happen, because Jesus is born in the line of Ruth and King David. In the Jewish faith, they see in Ruth the paradigm of chesed. Chesed with that Hebrew guttural. Chesed is a concept that is so important to the Bible, I could preach 2,000 sermons on it. Chesed is, that word is used 250 times in the Old Testament. Chesed, we translate it into English as loving kindness. But it's that and way more. It doesn't translate into English well. Chesed, it means steadfastness. It means loyalty. It means a loyal love that is somehow patient and courageous. And chesed means compassion, and almost every fruit of the Spirit is contained in the word chesed. But we translate it into English and we lose the nuance. In our Bible, chesed is first and foremost a characteristic of God. God says in Deuteronomy that know therefore that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God, chesed, who maintains covenant loyalty, chesed, with those who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. And in Romans chapter 8, chesed is spoken by the divine, saying that nothing can separate you from the love of God in Christ, neither death nor life nor any powers. And chesed is spoken in 2 Timothy that if we are faithless, God will remain faithful. For God cannot disown his own being. God is chesed, a steadfast love, loyal. And all through the Bible you see the divine represent this, leading the slaves to freedom, but staying with them, loyal in the desert as they fall away from God. But loyal is our God, and staying with them into the promised land and in the building of the nation. And then in the fullness of time, God expresses chesed, his loyal love, by giving us Jesus Christ. And then when Jesus Christ is sacrificed and resurrected, Jesus says to us, lo, I will be with you to the close of the age. That's chesed. I will never leave you. This word is so essential to our Bible. I don't think we should translate it at all. You should leave it in its fullness with all the nuances. Don't minimize it with one English word. I heard a preacher once say, if you have a ship you will not desert, if you have a cause you will not abandon, if you have a person you will not forsake, then you are like God. I thought, whoa, what? And then I thought about it. God is chesed, that loyalty. You share in that divine light when you have that kind of loyalty. I don't think we should translate the word. I've been on a thing lately. I don't know if you've noticed. There's certain words in the Bible I think we shouldn't translate, that we lose its nuance. I was telling you about Gehenna recently, that when Jesus says Gehenna, he says it a few times. He's referring to a trash fire outside Jerusalem, and he's talking about this vision of desolation for sure, but then we take an English word, hell. That's an English word. Hell is not in the Bible. It's an English word. And we put it on top of Gehenna, and now you think that it's an eternal torture chamber. But our God is a loyal God. There wouldn't be an eternal torture chamber. Your soul might go wayward. You might lose your way. There might be places of desolation in the journey of your soul, but there wouldn't be an eternal torture chamber. That English word hell was developed through Milton and through Dante, and now we have this notion, it's not Gehenna, but we throw that word in there, and we lose the sense of God's loyalty to us. You would never be banished eternally. Well, you might go sideways. We take these English words and we lose chesed completely. We take, there's a Greek word in the New Testament. It's said all the time, hamartia. Hamartia is a word from archery. It's when you're aiming for the bullseye but you miss. Hamartia. Then we take an English word, sin, and we put sin on top of that word, and you lose the whole sense that what hamartia means is you're trying your best. You're doing the best you can, and you're going to miss. And there will be consequences to your actions. But sin carries all this type of constitutional moralizing intensity that you're a worm. It forgets our fundamental goodness, the chesed that is within you. Oh, there's a word in Greek. It appears twice in the New Testament. Arsenokoitai. Arsenokoitai. It's a really rare Greek word. We're not even sure what it means. It's nowhere but in the Bible. We can't find any examples of it. Arsenokoitai. And it seems to mean some sort of perverse act. And then in 1946, we took an English word, in the Revised Standard Version, we took an English word and we threw it right on top of that Greek word, the word homosexuality. And that was a word not coined until the late 19th century, and we put it over this Greek word. We don't even know what kind of sexual act it's referring to, and we take homosexuality and then we pervert the text itself, because when we say gay, we mean two people that love each other. When we say gay, we're talking about love. We're not talking about some particular act. We're talking about love. And we take that word that's about love between human beings and we throw it in there. There's some words we shouldn't translate. Chesed. There's a moral philosopher that believed loyalty is the key virtue. He thought, if you want to live a morally significant life, if you want a life of moral significance, then to be a human being, you have to be striving after something. You have to have goals. That is what it is to be human. And you have to choose a cause to be loyal to lead a morally significant life. You have to choose some cause that extends even beyond your own life, but you're going to be loyal to that cause. And it's a good cause because it attracts other people to have loyalty. You must discover that. And he thought loyalty is the virtue of virtues. If you don't have loyalty, You can't be even loyal to the other virtues. You won't be loyal to honesty. You won't be loyal to compassion. You have to have loyalty first. And then he developed, this is in the early 1900s, the idea of beloved community. And the idea that beloved community, when community is just and loving and peaceful and equitable, that's the goal. That if you're loyal to beloved community, that's a goal that extends beyond your time horizon. It brings others. Beloved community, you might have heard that phrase. Because Martin Luther King, before he was Dr. Martin Luther King, went to Boston to study, and that philosopher's beloved community concept was being held and talked about at Boston University. And then Dr. Martin Luther King went forth and spoke to us about beloved community, that you must have loyalty to that. Well, something's going to happen in a couple days, right? And there's a lot of anxiety. A lot of people anxious or confused. But I want to remind you that no matter what happens in an election, we have to remain loyal to beloved community, no matter who wins. And so like the good king, and a Chico and Greyfriars Bobby and Ruth and our God, how they all display chesed. Now is our moment. Now it is our time to display loyalty to the common good. Oh, there will be bitter disappointment at the polls if your candidate, whomever that may be, does not win. But it's loyalty to the common good that must ultimately win. For whoever wins the election, half the country will feel they've lost. Yet at the end of the day, our loyalty is not to particular candidates. Our loyalty is to beloved community. And our collective task remains the same. No election day ever changes that. We must be loyal, chesed, and dogged to what is right. Regardless of who you vote for that day, after the election, we remain loyal to one another. Chesed, for even if we cannot enter heaven, but the least among us, even if we can enter heaven, but the least of us cannot enter heaven, then we shall not. Even if it feels like principles have died, we will not leave the grave. Even if it feels that the train has left on our hopes, we will remain steadfast. We will have chesed, our loyalty to what is good and right. We will be steadfast. We will be loyal. We will display a love that perseveres, for the most basic values remain, no matter what vote count. We must have a ship we will not desert, a cause we will not abandon, a person we will not forsake. And that ship is our country. The cause is beloved community, and the person is Jesus Christ. Nothing about any election ever changes that. We will remain loyal to love itself. We will remain loyal to the best in ourselves, to beloved community. Your people will be my people. Your God will be our God. We will remain united in shared loyalty to the common good. No election changes that. Where love stands, we will stand. Where equality and justice goest, we will go. Entreat us not to leave thee, O God. O God, you are our God. Amen.